Welcome back to the show, you beautiful, lovely marvels. Dana and I are just going to start the show by saying that we unabashedly and without shame are going to just request a sponsorship from, drum roll please.
Diet Coke. Because we both love Diet Coke, you know.
We do.
Yeah.
I go in and out of these phases where it's like an illicit affair. You know, I don't know. Should I be out in the open with you?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, are you bad for me? Ooh, but you do taste so good. I don't.
Yeah.
I struggle with this, Dana.
Yeah.
I do.
I know my clients have given me feedback. They love that I drink Diet Coke, like in the session. They're like, you're not even trying to hide it. You're not pretending it's tea. I drink plenty of water. It's like, I'm not ashamed of it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so for all of you out there, if you work for Coke, I mean,
let us know.
Reach out to us directly. We'd be happy to have a sponsorship.
There you go.
Hey, Dana, I want to ask you a question because this came up for me recently.
Mm-hmm.
So, on my podcast, on my Dr. Gwen Empowered podcast, I did an interview with NeuroTalentWorks, who is they're an employment company who's raising DEIJ awareness at the corporate level, specifically for neurodiversity.
Nice.
And they're also training talent, what they would call talent. So, and they're really trying to solve the underemployment and unemployment crisis that autistics face. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I had them on the show and, you and I talk about names and labels and we try to be really careful actually with our language. And, I had a very negative reaction from an audience person about using the word neurodivergent. And I will say it took me aback because I'm not, it's not like I'm a YouTuber, I don't live in this social media space. You might be more apt. You might have more training than I do in this regard because you've been in that social media space for longer.
Yeah.
And it just made me think then what? I try to be really respectful with my language. If someone doesn't want to be called neurodivergent, obviously like in a session, of course, respect that much because it's part of their identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like names and pronouns and, what is this? What is your take on the word neurodivergent?
Yeah. I think that their labels are always emerging. I got corrected once a while back. I was using, and I sort of smirked at it because I was using the word neurodiverse and neurodiversity. And within the context, sort of grammatically, whatever it was, someone said, no, it's neurodivergent. Neurodiversity is referring to a whole community and a single person is a neurodivergent. And I was like, oh, okay, point taken. But so it was a learning curve for me too. We hear about the neurodiversity movement. We hear about, what falls under the umbrella of being neurodivergent, right? ADHD, autism, we're seeing complex trauma show up under there, and then even TBIs because there's a total change to how the brain works.
Yep.
To me, being neurodivergent just means I fit under that umbrella, right? I think some people maybe have a bristled reaction to it because it kind of sounds negative, like you're divergent, like that movie series, like something's wrong, you're a divergent. But that I think it's as good of a label to use as anything. And like you said, if someone doesn't want to use a particular label, they shouldn't have to. I always tell people I'm gay. I just don't like the word lesbian, which is weird. It's just a thing for me. Doesn't mean anybody else is right or wrong. And it's the label that you want to use, right? It reminds me of not too long ago, we would talk about being Aspie or because it was tied to Asperger's. And then this whole discovery about Hans Asperger's, the shady bad side of him working with the Nazis and so on. And then people really start to reject anything that sounds like Asperger's or Aspie because of that totally makes sense. So then autism, we've done this on the show before. Are you autistic or do you have autism? Personal preference. There's heated debate about that, right? Whether someone feels like defective or I'm owning the label or whatever else those labels are. Autist is a word. One I love that I heard recently is folks that are autistic and ADHD. So ADHD is one I'm just starting to hear, which is awesome.
Yep.
So I think anytime you have labels that can shift and move and people can try on and it works better for them, it's fine. If someone is going to have a bad reaction, you're using the wrong term. Assuming it's not something marginalizing, like the piece with the using anything having to do with the Asperger name. A, it's not a diagnosis anymore, and B, it's got a sordid, icky past. It kind of reminds me of just old sayings, like my wife works at UW in the information school, and there's a lot about like looking up origins of things and making sure something's not fake and so on. I don't even remember what the saying was that I had the other day, and she said, "Oh, we should look that up and make sure that doesn't have some deep-seated horrible history." I'm like, "Oh my God, you're right." Like the thing rule of thumb. For those of you that don't know, rule of thumb used to mean that you were legally allowed to beat your wife as long as the stick was not bigger around in diameter than your thumb. And we don't think about it now. We're just like, oh, a rule of thumb. You could go crazy with it and say, you can't use anything that has a sordid history. But it's just an example of sayings in the vernacular and labels in the vernacular, I think, are constantly changing. And it really depends on what the person feels okay for them or not, right?
Yeah. As as someone who identifies as neurotypical, and I'm a psychologist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I care deeply about this community.
Mm-hmm.
I'm constantly fumbling over my words because I feel like I'm in this constant state of wanting to be respectful and mindful. And most people understand that. And I get some grace with that because they know who I am. I mean, they know me. So, and, I have used Nick Walker's, for those of you, Nick Walker is an author and a really a wonderful person in this space, in this neurodiversity community, and has written so many beautiful articles and papers. But anyway, she has a glossary of terms on her website. And I often refer to that. So she wrote Neuroqueer Heresies, and it's a collection of all of her work. And she really talks about how to use the words, right? And this is where I've always leaned into this in order to have a framework, right? So the neurodiversity movement or neurodiversity refers to the movement. Neurodiverse refers to the community or group of people. Neurodivergent is an individual person. So I'm just like trying to and I use it. I'm not always good.
Yeah, I'm not either. I sometimes fumble,
Yeah, because it's changing, right? And I think part of it is if you bristle with a term, how do you? And unfortunately, the burden falls on people. If you bristle with the term, then is it, how do you bring this up so that it gets corrected? Yeah. And I think about this in the space of pronoun use or name use. How do you do that? And I realize how challenging that can be. That can be really challenging for this community.
Yeah.
It's there's conflict, right? There's perceived conflict with it. It's hard, right? You're correct. You're making a correction. I've got to then express myself or communicate myself.
Yeah. Right.
With something that I perceive could be potentially conflictual. Is it worth it for me? And this is a question that I explore with a lot of my clients, actually. And so, for the audience, for you Marvels out there, Dana and I are never trying to be offensive with the names or the labels that we use. And so feel free to leave in the comments, what terms, what names, what name labels you use, what's comfortable, for you. I think that can be really interesting. But this is so individualistic.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to, if someone tells you, I prefer this word or that word, you don't have to get defensive. Just say, oh, thanks for telling me.
It's not
And
personal.
I'll try to do that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
it just, someone starts calling me, Rebecca, I'd be like, well, my name's not Rebecca, it's Dana. It sounds ridiculous. You wouldn't get mad at the person for but if the person kept calling me Rebecca, you'd be like, God, what a jerk. Why don't they call her by her name? Sort of that, it's the effort that matters, right? I want to get it right, so I'm going to try. Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. The thoughtfulness. I mean, my last name is for some reason very challenging, even though it's phonetically, so Palafox, but I get called Parasox, Paradox, Palacox. Oh, I'm not kidding. I cannot even tell you.
Pair of socks.
It's so funny. And I don't necessarily make the correction because I could really care. I mean, I don't until I'm like, talking at an event and it's like Dr. Paradox. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe not the paradox, but I could be paradoxical. I often am actually.
Yeah.
But it's just really funny. But I think it is the effort and the thoughtfulness about the fact that words are powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get it. There's lots of conversation about this in regards to labels and political sensitivity and political correctness and all of this. Again, it's just a matter of like, where are you coming from in regards to your thoughtfulness?
And to be judgmental with yourself that the growth curve might be high. I mean, it's sort of like pronouns, right? A lot of people are like, oh God, blah, 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 pronouns. It's like, no, because these are identity pieces for folks.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as someone mispronouncing your last name or something like that. It's how you're seen and so on. So it's okay to say you don't like a particular word, but to say to the other person, you're wrong for using that. It gets a little sticky then, especially if that person wants to use that word and they're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow.
Anyway, ask questions, be open, and put in the effort. I think that those always go a long way.
Put in the effort as much as you'd want someone to put in the effort for you. I mean, that old golden rule still holds true.
Yeah, exactly. Be nice.
Be nice. Just be nice. Be nice. And if you want to be mean, just leave it in your thought bubble is what I say.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
There's a difference between a thought bubble and a speaking bubble. And if your thought bubble gets really big, you need to excuse yourself and go empty it out somewhere else. That's all I'm going to say.
Exactly. Yeah. Go have a temper tantrum and then come back.
Yeah. Well, you are a primal scream for that matter, Dana.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a little Easter egg. If you caught that, you are a true marvel, by the way. Right. Yeah. If you caught that, you are a true marvel. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for being in this space with us. Thank you for allowing Dana and I to do something that we really, truly, deeply enjoy.
Yeah.
The best way to actually support us is to like our content, is to leave comments, whether you're listening or you're watching. That is really the best way to support our show and what we do. Yeah. And so we would just encourage you that if you like what you hear, please leave a comment. Please subscribe to our channel. That's really helpful. It helps this information get to others.
Yeah, and it also fills us up when we know we're making a difference.
I know. Dana and I have been our hearts have been full by the feedback that we've gotten more recently. So thank you. You guys know who you are. Anyway, all right, Dana, we're going to sign off with our new sign-off phrase, which is
be good to you.
Be good to you. All right, everyone, be good to you. See you later. Bye.
Bye.